On June 15, 1859, an American farmer on a small island in the Pacific Northwest shot and killed a pig. The pig belonged to a British company. Within weeks, there were nearly 500 American soldiers and 5 British warships carrying 2,240 men and 70 cannons pointed at each other on an island roughly the size of a large shopping mall. The 2 most powerful navies in the world were on the verge of open combat over a pig. This is the Pig War of 1859, one of the most gloriously absurd near conflicts in history. And the best part? Nobody fired a single shot. This is that story. To understand the Pig War, we need to understand San Juan Island, a small, beautiful island sitting in the strait between what is now Washington State and Vancouver Island. In 1846, the US and Britain signed the Oregon Treaty, dividing the Pacific Northwest along the 49th parallel. Simple on land, less simple in water. A chain of islands sits in the strait, and the treaty language about which channel formed the boundary was, to put it diplomatically, ambiguous. Both the United States and Great Britain claimed San Juan Island. Both had settlers. The Americans had farmers. The British had a sheep farm. For years, everyone had managed to coexist in an atmosphere of mutual suspicion and barely suppressed territorial fury. They shared the island with cheerful hostility. And then, on the morning of June 15, 1859, a large black pig wandered into American farmer Lyman Cutler's potato garden and started eating his potatoes. Lyman Cutler had had enough. This was not the first time the pig had visited his garden. He had complained. Nothing had been done. And now here it was again. Cutler shot the pig. The Hudson's Bay Company was furious. They demanded compensation. Somewhere between $10 and $100, depending on the account. Cutler reportedly offered $10, saying the pig had been trespassing and frankly the pig had it coming. The British threatened to arrest Cutler. American settlers, alarmed at the prospect of British authorities arresting an American citizen on what they considered American soil, sent an urgent message to the US Army. The US Army responded by sending 66 soldiers under Captain George Pickett. Yes, that George Pickett. He arrived on the island and declared it American territory. The British responded to Pickett's 66 soldiers by sending a warship. Pickett responded by requesting reinforcements. The British sent another warship. Within a matter of weeks, the situation had escalated to 461 American soldiers, with 14 cannons facing 5 British warships, carrying 2,140 men and 70 naval guns. British Rear Admiral Robert Baines was ordered to land Marines. He refused. His words were essentially, "I will not start a war over a squabble about a pig. He's the most sensible person in this story." News reached Washington, D.C. and London. Both governments were not pleased. President Buchanan dispatched General Winfield Scott, a veteran of 3 wars, to sort out the mess. Scott arrived, assessed the situation, and began negotiating. Both sides agreed the standoff was insane. They reached a gentleman's agreement, a small military presence each. For the next 12 years, San Juan Island was jointly occupied. And then something remarkable happened. They got along rather well. They shared food and played sports together. In 1872, both nations agreed to submit the dispute to international arbitration, with Kaiser Wilhelm I of Germany serving as the neutral arbiter. The Kaiser ruled in favor of the United States. San Juan Island was American. The British packed up English camp and sailed home. The boundary had been settled. It had taken 13 years, 2 armies, and 1 pig to get there. Today, San Juan Island is a quiet, beautiful destination. The park preserves both American camp and English camp. You can walk around the earthworks where soldiers once waited. There is a small cemetery at English camp. Several British soldiers died during the joint occupation, from illness and accident. They are still there on American soil, tended by the National Park Service. The Pig War is remembered locally with affection. There are pig-themed souvenirs and events. The island knows what made it famous, and it leans into it cheerfully. It's one of the best examples in history of how conflict can be diffused when people decide the thing they are fighting about is not worth dying for. General Scott came to negotiate instead of fight. The Pig War. 1 dead pig, 2 empires, 12 years of joint occupation, 0 casualties, and 2 armies spent 12 years being remarkably decent to each other. Subscribe for more forgotten history. Because the stories that didn't make the textbooks are almost always the most interesting ones. Let me know in the comments. Whose side are you on? The farmer or the pig?